Hey, everybody, and welcome to Chart Request Live, the show where you pick the tickers that we discuss. My name is Jason Krutsky. I am your host. I hope everybody's having a great evening. We are very, very lucky this evening because we are joined by our special guest, Mr. Mike Pisani. You guys might know him from Twitter. He's Options Mike on Twitter. Mike, man, how are you doing tonight?
Jason, nice to be here. It's a fabulous, balmy 50-degree night here in New Jersey. And yeah, what could be better than doing charts after a slow, brutal day in the market?
Yeah, my thoughts exactly. So let's do this, man. You know, as people are filing in, maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself. Surely some of our viewers are not familiar with you. Maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, you know, how you got started into trading, your trading style, that sort of stuff.
So, for me, I started trading pretty much right after the financial crisis. That's the first time I got interested in stocks. And I went out and said, I'm going to buy a bunch of stocks and we'll see what's left. And I bought GM and Ford and Bank of America. I even bought SSO, which is a ETN that was a leveraged. And I was like, okay, we'll see what happens from here. And of course, GM went away. That one just went completely to zero and just disappeared. But the rest worked out really well. The one I didn't buy, which my wife at the time beat me over the head, which was Starbucks.
Oh,
Of course.
that'd have been a good one.
That would have been good. And then so I started that with my trading career. And then as it was going along, I started getting into options and leverage. And I said, I really need to learn about this. So I started making options trade. And I remember my first option trade was on Zynga, believe it or not. And I made like $10,000 in a day. I'm like, oh my God, why am I trading stock?
Yep.
And, and so I started getting with that until I realized you can lose 10 or 25 or $30,000 in a day when you were doing that. Then I really realized I had to learn about options. So I started learning how to swing trade and use options and stock, and I trade both back and forth. And I don't swing as much as I used to. I tend to either invest and go long term, where I'll just hold things for a long period of time, whether it be options or stock or both, or I tend to day trade in and out of stuff quickly, depending upon the market conditions these days.
When you're day trading, are you usually playing shares or options?
A little bit of both. I tend to like shares a lot because I get in and out of it very quickly and make nice money and get my goal quickly and get out. But when I really want to sit in something and I don't want to be worried about something pulling back in my face or getting stopped out as easily, I go with options.
Got it. And same, I guess, is probably true for your swing positions as well.
Yeah, for swing trades, I generally like to go with options, although I'll buy stock and just let it sit if I really like something. And so it really just depends on where I'm at. Like I've been sitting at Ford for a while now and I'm red. And, I'm always looking for what I want to buy. And I have a nice little shopping list here and I'm watching the market and seeing, okay, are we going to push up and should I be buying or are we going to come back down a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. Right on. All right. So there's a little brief on Mr. Mike here. For all of the folks who are just tuning in for the first time, this is a live voting show. So you guys actually pick the tickers that we're going to discuss. You get to pick 3 tickers per round. You do have to pick 3 unique names. You cannot pick the same name 3 times, but you can pick the same 3 names each round. A round is 1 ticker. So lots of rounds. We should be able to get through a lot of the names that you guys want to see. So yeah, that's the gist. And for anybody who has seen one of these shows before, we really appreciate you joining us again. So with that, we're going to jump right in here. We're going to go to the SPY. What are we looking at on the SPY today?
So we had kind of a little bit of an FU candle today on the SPY after a really bullish candle yesterday in the markets. And what I look at is this: you traded above yesterday's high and then you reversed and you created a hammer candle down and we completely engulfed yesterday's action, which to me is always a little bit worrisome, except when you come down to the volume bar and you look at it, the volume was not anything special. What that really tells me is that there was no selling pressure here today. This was some profit taking. We had comments out of Brainerd who was usually one of the most dovish Fed members out there, that was extremely hawkish. And the market sold off hard on that one comment, although it's kind of surprising to me because the market's already priced in a 0.50 basis hike for each of the next 3 Fed meetings. So it took me a little by surprise, but the market came down. And what I'm looking at mostly is we lost the 8 and the 100-day here, which is this little cluster sitting in here. And if we kept holding that, I said we were very strong. Friday, we had this beautiful recovery to hold it. We moved up yesterday. So we have the Fed minutes tomorrow. And the next area I'm really watching now is the 200-day, which is right down here around the 447.80 area. green line here, if you can see that. And that's the big spot to watch tomorrow. If we hold that, the markets are all just fine. If we can't hold that, then maybe Houston, we have something to worry about.
So what defines a hold for you? Do you want to just see that the candle closes above that line? It can it trade through and ultimately close above and it still hold? What kind
Yeah.
of confirmation do you require?
For me, I want it to close above it. And,
Okay.
especially on something like that, I want to close above it, because the one thing we've learned a long time ago is they love to play, especially the algos. They love to play with numbers. They love to overthrow either through the upside or downside, and then get people to chase, and they can bring everything right back. So, if you look at Friday's candle, we were lower than we are today. But look
Right.
at the size of that tail, and we came raging back in, closed back above the 8-day, and you got this beautiful follow through day yesterday on Monday.
Right.
So for me today, if we were to come down and we were trade below it and then come back, as long as we closed above it, I think we're fine. But you don't want to then keep tailing it below it over and over again.
Right. What do you look for an entry? Do you just want to see that hold? Or I guess for a long entry, do you just want to see that hold, or do you need some additional confirmation?
I think it comes down to how the action was after it, right? I take everything down at that point to an intraday chart. Are we seeing big volume coming in on the buy side as it's going up, or is it more of a little short covering rally going to the close and kind of a whimper? And I think you have to kind of look at that and see what's going on out there, and just what the overall reaction was. Also what I tend to look at is on a short-term chart, are you really extended to the downside? And that means we're recovering because we just gone too far too fast intraday. So for me, I'm looking to see good volume and something that wasn't just an oversold intraday rally into the close.
Got it. Right on. All right. Well, let's keep on moving here. We're going to go on to the next round. And it looks like we're on Facebook here. I think that maybe there might be something going on with the voting. I can't be sure about that, but I'm pretty sure about that. So we're going to be working on that on the back end, and we'll just keep on jamming through the names that we've got here.
So Facebook, I talked about this on Sunday. It had to get above the 50-day. You see this big sharp line coming down here. And you can see for the 3 sessions going into Monday how it wasn't even getting to it, and it just kept selling off. But you see the 8-day, this line right here. I like how it had been riding it and holding above it. And yesterday we got this big explosive candle, ripped up above the 50-day, ripped higher. And today, while it doesn't look great, it actually showed a lot of relative strength today. Facebook held in almost all day, and it just hung in there to the very end of the day, and was mostly just slightly red when the market was very red. So for me, this is, while it's a reversal candle down, it's not a horrible reversal candle down compared to the market. So I'd be watching this for strength. If it dipped and it held the 8 and the 50-day here again, I think that'd be a great buy. And then you got to watch, that's the one thing I love about your gap snake up here, right? You have this chart, this gap that's sitting up here from earnings, and that's the area I'm targeting here to see if we can get up to that 247, 248 area on it. And also look at the volume. You have this big volume gap in here. So if it wants to, it can really kind of run its way all the way up into here into the 256 area as well.
Right. And what would negate all that for you?
Couldn't hold the 50 and the 8-day into the close. That would say, nope, not ready, and let's look out of the way. And always look at the market. What are the Qs doing? What are the SPY doing? Is it trading against them or with them? Is it showing relative strength?
Yeah. If price were to end up failing at that 8 and the 50, is the 50, right?
Mm-hmm.
If price were to fail there, where would we be looking for targets lower?
At that point, I watched the 21-day, which is now curling up nicely down here, to see how that worked out. And, then it gets rough, because Facebook's had, you back up this chart, Facebook's have a rough time of it, right? From all the way up here and near the 400 area down, and it's basically worn 3 quarters in a row. So, I'm worried about it overall, but, if it couldn't hold there, you could see a situation. The market sold off. I wouldn't be surprised to see a retest of the lows down at 186.
Yeah. So it seems like moving averages are pretty important to your analysis.
For me, price action is the number one thing I'm always looking at, and then volume. But the moving averages give me something to look at and wait against. And I have found over the years that a lot of names respect them. The 8, the 21-day, the 50-day, the 200-day especially. Names will come into them. They'll either use them as resistance or use them as support over and over again. And so you learn which ones use it and like it, and it's just a guide. It gives you somewhere to look at and a point of reference. Is it strong? Is it weak? Am I above the moving average? Is my short term, the 21-day? If I'm above it, I'm strong. If I'm below it, I'm weak, and maybe I should be looking for shorts. And if I'm under all the moving averages, then I really have a mess of a chart, which Facebook was until recently, right? When it was sitting down here.
Right. All right, awesome. Let's keep on moving here. It does appear that the voting might still be
Well,
not
we
working
could start
properly. So.
popping in names, whatever, if people want to pop them up in their chat or
Yeah, yeah,
whatever.
yeah. If you have names, if the voting's not working properly, if you have names, hit us up in the chat and we can get to them.
Well,
Um,
let's hit Snap real quick as long as
all
we're here
right,
on social
yeah, let's
media.
hit snap.
And this is another chart that I'm really starting to warm up to. And if you look here, you have this big gap that a lot of it held, and it finally reclaimed the 50-day. And you see it's here, it's warming up after a good earnings here, and it's looking like it wants to wake up. And right now I would just kind of watch the 100-day here, which is coming down. You can see how it's coming down into it. If it can take and hold above the 100-day, you have this huge volume hole sitting here. And
Nice.
that's the type of thing you're looking for, right? You're looking for a chart that can move. And I think the most important thing right now, you're looking for names that had good earnings, and Snap did have a good report. Remember, all the way down here from the 24 area, and at the end of hit up into the 40 on that earnings day. So this is a name you want to keep an eye on, but just remember, earnings are again about a month away.
Right on. All right. Yeah, interesting. All right. So I think what we're doing here is Sadie's going to be adding names as they come into the chat. So we're just going to keep on rolling with the rounds, and I'm going to go to the next one. And it's Twitter, of course.
Of course. What can I say about Twitter? It's had this huge move. Elon Musk took what we thought was a passive stake into it. Turns out after hours comes out, now he's reclassified as an active stake. He got a board seat this morning. So you have a catalyst, right? So you have this huge gap here now. So as long as you hold this gap, you can see it comes right in here to the 40, let's call it the 47 level, close enough. It's strong. It retook all the moving average in 2 days. I mean, this is just a massive move. What I would say this is I would not be chasing a move like this. That said, we'll see how it handles this. You see the 8 days down here. One of the tricks I always use is when you get this extended off a short-term moving average, typically you need to let it catch up. You're 21 days down at 39, the stock's trading up at 50, the 8 days down here at 43. These need to catch up. So I would look for some digestion. And maybe if the 8-day catches up, that would give the trade, if it touched it and let it launch at that point higher. Earnings are going to be big. I don't expect a great earnings report out of Twitter. I mean, they just haven't had one in a while. But, can Musk make a difference? Maybe.
Man, even whether he can or he can't, just his name alone is clearly driving this thing.
I just question how many companies can he be actively involved in?
Yeah, for sure. It's certainly interesting that he went from passive to active in 1 day.
Yep.
As soon as I read that news, I definitely texted my friend. I was like, do we really think that he's going to take a passive stance in this? Like, is that even reasonable for him? I don't know.
But he got on the board with a deal. So he's not allowed, him and his allies are not allowed to own more than 14% of Twitter.
Interesting. All right. Pending we get that consolidation sideways, the 8 catches up, where are we looking for kind of targets above?
I mean, you can see here after this last report, I mean, it came crashing on down through here and hasn't been well. So you got the volume shelf, right? If you really just look at it sitting here roughly at the 55 area, you have this big volume shelf that basically says it can just kind of move its way back up. And, you look at a chart like this and I would say, let's look roughly the 60, 61 area. You have a lot of candles that traded in here, maybe even to 61 area, you have a lot of resistance in there. So if it wanted to pop up from here, I would look at 61 as the next big spot.
All right, awesome. We're gonna keep on moving here. Next round, Vale. I believe this is like an energy name.
Vale is it's a miner in Brazil.
Okay, cool.
They very heavily into nickel and lithium as well, and all sorts of stuff. So it's in the right space, right? It's been a commodities market. So Vale has had this really nice move up, and you can see here it's getting up closer to these highs at 23 where it was. This is always a slow moving name. So one thing is this is a difficult name to day trade. It just doesn't have a lot of range involved and it doesn't move much. For me, this came down here today. It held the 8-day. If it holds the 8-day, which it closed right on, very strong chart. I would try it off of there tomorrow if it held this and bounced. If you liked it for a long-term call bounce, I do think it can go up here and take out the 23. I do not think that this super cycle in commodities is anywhere near over at this point. As long as the war continues to rage in Ukraine and we continue to sanction Russia, that's just going to bring more of the commodities into tighter supply. If it cannot hold there, then watch the 21-day. That would be the next spot. You do have a gap sitting down here below it. So that's one thing to be aware of. It might do overshoot, come down, hit the 20-way to shoot down and fill this gap and then come flying back out of it.
Yeah, interesting. All right, keep it on. Next round, Roku.
And everybody loves Roku, and I used to love trading this name, and it's just been so bad now for a while.
Ooh, it's a dog.
So far off the highs. Last report was really bad. They guided down for the first time, and I mean, it was not just guiding down a little; they really guided down. So you're kind of in this area. You have to wait for the name to prove itself again. And you can see here, this is the 50-day moving average. And this is going to show on a lot of tech charts. These beaten up names, the 50 days kind of become this place where they're all kind of running into and they can't get above it. And that means the sellers are sitting on this saying, hey, I don't want to sell down here. I'll let people come in. I'll let retail and the algos or whatever come buy it up and I'll start hammering it on the 50-day. And you got to remember, that's what funds do. Funds don't just dump unless they're absolute in panic. They sell slowly or they accumulate like Elon did over time. If you look at Elon on Twitter, he was buying it 21 days in a row. Before he put his Twitter poll up, he had already owned all the stake he was going to buy. So, he knew what he had already. So, right now you have to get above the 50 days. So that's what you need to watch here. If you can get above that, then maybe you can start to push up into this range up here, up into the 167 range. So the nice thing about Roku, it has great range, but earnings are coming and that's going to be key.
Awesome. What about downside potential for a retest of that?
I do think the retest, if the markets sell off on this 198, is definitely in the line there. And if it really wants to get ugly, I mean, you got to go way back now.
Oh man, yeah,
and,
wow.
You could look back to the pandemic lows and say, yep, well, you could see 60 again on this. I mean, you have a classic M pattern here, right? If you don't know what an M pattern is, you come up, you make an M pattern. Up here, come down, push up. It's the opposite of W. We came down, we lost it, and here's your implied move. And very classic looking M pattern here on the daily chart.
Interesting. Scary name. Next round. Let's keep moving. Silver, SLV.
God, the metals, the precious metals to me are always some of the toughest trades out there. And I know people love to trade them. I'm going to give you just heads up. I trade gold and silver abysmally. I'm almost always wrong, always late. That said, we had the big move at the start of the war. We've come off it at this point, and this chart to me is just not saying anything. There's not really anything compelling here. One thing I've learned is a friend of mine, Terry, always says you buy gold or silver when it's weak. You never chase it. You always buy it on a pullback. The problem here is we're starting to lose some of these levels in here as it's coming down. And, here's your 50-day moving average sitting in here. And maybe is that the 50 or the 200? I'm sorry, there's the 200-day sitting down here. And maybe that finally picks it up. I don't have a good feel for silver right now. And honestly, the way it's trading is just not saying something I really would want to be in right here.
What would it need to do to get you interested?
Regain all the moving averages. Let's get back above the 21-day here and reverse course on this and show me that you want to be played with. There's something going on. See a bunch of option flow. The option flow on it has generally been bearish for the last week or so. And I'd like to see a lot of big call buying, especially with time, people coming out here in time. I find that the precious metals are really just heavily manipulated, and you really best if you know them trading the futures market. I don't trade them very often.
Got it. All right. Yeah, we really apologize, guys, about the voting mechanism, but Sadie is taking all of your votes and she's plugging them in for you. So we've got our next round up, and it is Tesla.
Of course. Everybody wants to talk Tesla. Let's talk Tesla. Tesla today broke above yesterday's high and failed. So that's a little bit of a warning sign here, maybe a little bit of exhaustion today, right? You have this big, beautiful candle. Let's just start off from here. You have this big, beautiful move. You get this big gap up on the announcement that he wants to do another stock split. And then you digest it for a week, and then boom, you get the breakout candle. And today, instead of pushing up or flagging, you get a candle that I call the doink candle, right? Doink, get everybody stopped out. The good news is you've held the 8 days still down here. You haven't even touched it yet. So as long as you hold that, you're fine. Your next big area to watch down below would be this gap. If you hold that gap, very, very strong. If you hold these and the market holds in, then you can start looking up here at the all-time high. And I do think that's very, very likely in this name. You could also come in here and, oops. I hate when it does. There we go. Put it in the wrong spot, of course. I do that sometimes.
That's okay. We all do that sometimes, man.
Come on. All right. There we go. right? So you come in here and you can see today also what it did. It was a perfect matchup.
Right.
It went right to this triple top. So you now have a downtrend you could trade against here on Tesla. So you're going to have to break above this at volume. So if it can digest in here, I think it's fine.
And again, what would negate this for you?
If you can't hold this gap and you fill it, then it's out of play until probably earnings, which are about 3 weeks away, 2.5 weeks away.
Got it. All right. So it needs to get a move on.
Yep.
All righty. Continuing on. Next round, DVN, Devon Energy.
Energy. Devon's been a monster. By the way, when you do charts like me, you know, I draw lines for people, but I just kind of see those things in my eyes, right? I could look up there and I say, oh, that looks like a, you know, right into that downtrend. So for me, I don't draw a lot of these sometimes. I do them for everybody else. Devon here, you know, energy remains a monster. And for what it's worth, oil is probably not done going up. It's going to take a little while before everybody realizes that that Russian supply is missing. And, you know, I don't care how many millions of barrels a day of oil released in reserves. It's just not enough to put a dent into what the oil supply we use in this country.
Right.
So eventually, I think these all turn back up. You know, ExxonMobil came out yesterday and guided up, saying you see revenues in the third quarter going higher and profits going higher. So you had a little bit of a rest here, and you can see it's kind of just quiet in here. You have a little bit of an inverted head and shoulders pattern here with, you know, here's your neckline up here, and here's your head down here. You have a little bit of a pattern that's kind of set up here. And you don't want it to go much lower than this, though. So for me, I'd like it to kind of hold no lower than here, this 3760 area, and hold this candle right here. If it holds that, it's very, very strong. If not, here's your 50-day coming up. That'd be great. The only concern I have with energy is your 200-day is sitting here all the way down now at the 41 area, and you're getting very extended off of that. And, you know, and when you're 50% off the 200-day, that's usually when problems can kind of happen on a name. But if energy and crude keeps going, pick your energy name, whether you like Devon or Oxy or Chevron, which is probably the best in breed. I think they all look good and they continue to go higher.
What makes Chevron best in breed?
They have the largest dividend out there, and they're just probably one of the best well-managed companies in terms of the energy space.
Got it. All right, cool. Let's keep on moving and grooving here. Next round, we got Eli Lilly, LLY.
Oh,
I'm sorry. No, AMD.
nope.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
Which one?
AMD. Yeah,
You sure?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was like, remember I talk about some names really loving the moving averages. AMD really is very respectful of the 50-day moving average, which is right here at this point. I usually have my charts white. They're very different colors. You can see when it's above it, it tends to use as support. When it's below it, uses as resistance. And, you know, that's the one thing I learned about AMD a long time ago. It really respects that. You know, one thing I don't like what's going on here at AMD, we broke out of this range last week, and then we sold off hard that day. And you had again, this is a hammer down engulfing reversal candle. That is when you see a candle like this on the daily, that is a get the hell out of Dodge candle, right? This is, unless you're in this very long term, you got problems here. Held the 8-day, then we get a weak downgrade the next day. And the selling off that downgrade was unbelievable. We gap down and then we sell off, and now we're struggling here. And, you know, we were talking about this the other day and stuff, you know, do you think it holds 100? And the 100 area has been a place that's been holding now quite a bit. So if you look back into here, you can see the 100 all the way from back here in September. It's hit this a bunch of times and it's held it. So that's a big area to watch. What I would watch right now for on AMD is a hammer reversal candle. And that is, you know, where we trade below the previous day's close, reverse, and start taking it back. That would give me an idea that buyers are coming back into it, and then start taking back some of these moving averages. If not, I'm going to look at around the 100-day and see if we can get a hammer candle off of that. I wouldn't just buy it because it touched the 100-day. I'd rather see a candle like we have here. See, this is a hammer candle. Classic move, just went below 100, reverse, took it back, and that started a nice 4-day move up before it exhausted itself.
You know, one thing that's kind of interesting is that AMD, what you described there, 5 days ago, it takes out the high, immediately sells off, and then engulfs and then gaps down, right? What we've seen on a decent handful of names today is that same setup, right? We took out the previous day's high, and then we engulfed and closed below previous day's low. So is AMD, or could AMD be like a signal, or could it be foreshadowing what might be to come on some of the names that are seeing that setup that AMD saw 5 candles ago.
I think it's a concern. I'm going to switch charts on you here real quick and stay in the sector, the SMHs and the semi ETF real quick. And, something that worries me is that the semi ETF very weak today and it's not leading. And one thing I always learned in my life in career trading is when the semis lead, we tend to be a stronger market overall. And right now they're not leading. You had a very weak candle today. So, AMD could be a signal of problems to come, especially on the tech heavy NASDAQ and the Qs, right? Which, kind of a weirder candle today. So yeah, it is essentially a warning sign out there and something we need to watch.
Interesting. All right, we're going to keep on moving here, my friend. We're going to VIAC, Viacom. Haven't looked at this name in a while.
I thought they're gone. Aren't they Para now?
I don't know. Let's go to it.
I thought they changed their name to Paramount.
It's very possible.
I am pretty sure Viacom is no longer out there. I thought they became Paramount.
Yeah, well then,
Para.
yeah, let's check out Para then.
Right. So, So the only thing about me is when I'm doing charts and stuff, you'll get a little bit of technical and you always get some fundamental. Their last earnings report was absolute crap, and they changed their name to Para, right? They changed it from Viacom, CBS Viacom to Para, Paramount Network. And for some reason, it got bought back and it went higher. I mean, you can see the gap down here and the weakness on earnings. And well, it's a whole new company. Well, it's the same crappy company, just with a brand new name that's going on out there. So nothing really changed. I really don't specifically like this company much at all. They are a niche in the streaming industry. The streaming industry really is eventually going to go through some type of major contraction, right? Where everybody starts coming together. I prefer names like Roku or Netflix or Amazon if you really want to play in this space more than these, or even Disney. To me, this one here, weak, it came up to the, notice this candle right up to the top of the volume shelf where it's heavy short volume. We sold off on it. We are holding the 50-day and the 21-day here. To me, this is more of an investment company. I don't really trade a company like this. Plus, you have all this garbage. This is all fake, right? And you look at this run and everybody thinks Para is going to go back to this. And, something I'll tell people, I tell my members this all the time, just because a name's cheap doesn't mean you should buy it, right? There's a reason names get cheap.
Right.
This name ran up on garbage.
Right.
And then it sold off because everybody got called because they were hedged and, they were margined out the wazoo on this thing. And now they've come down. So just because it's cheap, I don't necessarily want to own this name. And I think there's better names out there, honestly.
And an insane amount of overhead supply, right? Like it could take a very long time for price to work its way through all of that supply above.
Well, I mean, it's not even that. I mean, if you go further back, I know I'm opening this wide. This stock was never worth this kind of money.
Right.
Right. This was a blip, a bubble in that whole it was Archeos or whatever, the hedge fund that blew up. That was part of that. So yeah.
Crazy. All right. We're gonna keep on moving here. Next round. What do we got? It's like Lilly this time. LLY.
Love Lilly. So I do an outperform list every year and do a whole charting on it and reason why. And Lilly was one of my outperform names on this year, and it's really starting to work now. They have just some great drugs coming out at this point. They're a large pharmaceutical company, which makes them better than some of these smaller biotechs, because some of these biotech companies, they're one drug and done. Everybody loves Moderna right now, but they have one drug. They just have their vaccine for COVID. So Lilly's trading up here at all-time highs, and you have this beautiful, nice flag, and it's riding the 8-day, and that's just a beautiful chart to watch. So, for me, you either keep trying to buy it off the 8-day as long as it holds, or you wait for it to break out now above the 295 area, and that would be where I'd be looking to buy it. And, if it come back down again, if it had weakness, last time it held the 200-day, you can see it danced on it here. That'd be a great place to buy it if it had any kind of major weakness.
All right, cool. Let's keep on moving. Next round. mRNA.
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't really like this company much right now. The reason is they're a one drug pony, and they're basically just about the vaccine. And news out today was that Africa has said no more of them. They don't want any more of their vaccine out there. So, one of the things that's been holding the stock up is they had better than expected earnings. They're doing big stock buybacks. But ultimately, until they have another drug come to market where it gets through trials, this is the type of name that just kind of worries me. So you can see it's kind of stuck up here. It came up to this volley shelf here where we can get above this 188 area, 189 area, and it kind of stopped there. If it can take that out, then I would look for a move up here to the 100-day moving average and see if it can start taking some of these levels out. But honestly, trading weak, and I don't see any reason why this can't come back and retest the lows.
Yeah, I'm pretty much with you on that. All right, cool. Good one. Going to keep on moving here. Energy Fuels.
All right. Not a name I trade very often, but chart has been perking up. You can see this nice move. This name tends to whip, right? This name tends to move big moves. You have this big move up going into the war. We've come in. It's now a little weaker. You had a very nasty candle today. One thing I always learn when you look at candles is when you have a big tail on a candle like that, that's really a bad sign. That means the sellers came in force, closed almost on the lows, and that usually is a sign that you should get some more follow through to the downside. So with that, I would say, okay, maybe we come down here and we retest this area down here around the 851. So again, names like this, I would look for some type of hammer candle to get involved in. Maybe it comes down here. Here's your 50-day coming up, your 100 days in here. I just don't see a lot of love in this name right now, but if it comes back to it and it takes it out, then your big area to clear is this 1055 level.
So you're saying you wouldn't be getting long unless price made it above that 1050 level?
Or a hammer candle. I want some kind of reversal candle. I don't want a candle like, I can go back to AMD real quick. It's a great example of it. AMD, everybody got excited about yesterday on this candle, but it wasn't a hammer. It kind of gapped, it wasn't a really good hammer candle. It was kind of an inside candle on it. It was kind of nothing, it never got below the previous day's low. It just was gapped up, right? It gapped up, came down, then came back. For you, I would look for a true hammer candle on it. And, something along the lines like, down here, this candle where you traded below it, you took it back. And these are the type of candles that definitely give your best reversals, your best entrances.
Got it. All right, cool. Good to know. Let's keep on moving here. Next round, CHPT, ChargePoint.
Little guy, ChargePoint, a lot of talk about charging out there. Administration is trying to get everybody moving to electric cars. I think there was a piece out today that they said they need 100,000 charging stations around the country just for government vehicles. Think about that, 100,000 charging stations just for government vehicles.
Interesting.
But, here's your 200-day moving average. And what have we done the last 2 days on it? We basically failed on it and rolled over. Now we're on the 8-day. You got a nasty candle today. Again, so see, this is a big spot. You've been riding the 8-day now since back here on the 16th of March. If you cannot hold here, then I would look down to the 21-day, which also really kind of comes up nicely with both the volume shelf and this nice little flag you put in down here. That would be the area to watch for a reversal. And then to really want to be long this thing, instead of just off a reversal, if you're waiting, it's going to have to take out the 200-day and close above it.
Right. So do you, if it were to take out the 200-day close above it, would you let it kind of go and come back to the 200 before you take an entry, or are you going to just dive in right there?
For me, if I got a nice entrance on a hammer candle and I liked it, and this is probably not a name I would look to own, I would trade it. I would day trade a name like this. I generally don't own anything like ChargePoint. Okay. I might take it down here and then see if I can get, level by level. What I would do is if I took it off of here, if I got a reversal candle, I took it off, let's say the call it the 18 area, and it hit the 8-day, maybe I take half my position off, put some money in my pocket, put a stop in place somewhere in the money in here. So no matter what, I can't lose money on it. And then I would see if I can rise to the 200-day, maybe take some more off of it at that point, and then see what it does from there.
Got it. All right, sweet. Let's keep on moving here. Next round, CCJ, Cameco. I believe this is uranium.
Yep. So, another play on the war in the Ukraine with Russia provides the world with a lot of its uranium, and that's all been closed off to everybody now. So, there's a lot of themes here that are around commodities like CCJ. CCJ actually had a pretty good amount of call buying coming into it today, but you can see here, charts had a, multi-year high, nice little strong move. It might even be for all-time highs, if I remember correctly. I think it is. And, just couldn't hold today. And I mean, that was the theme in the market today. A lot of these names just could not hold in. It was strong early, and then it came back down and closed on the lows and under the 8-day. And it's trading sloppy, right? And then, so when you see candles like this that you don't have a lot of good feel, you're not getting true reversals or back and forth. There's an old saying out there, we all talk about this. If you close on the lows, you expect follow through in the next day below it. If you close on the highs, you expect follow through above it. And we're not seeing that easily right now in the market. So who knows what this wants to do from here. If it cannot hold here, the 21-day though becomes the place. You can see how it's danced off of this now for the last couple sessions. So I'm not sure. We'll see if it can hold up.
Funny question just came in. A lot of these charts, like we've been saying, a lot of them are kind of looking the same. I'm not sure about these names, waiting for some confirmation. Are there any names just off the bat that you really like right now, this moment?
I think the big pharmaceuticals are looking really good. So J&J today, you've had this nice move up. You're not far right now off the all-time high back here, and just a nice move. Couldn't hold it, but stayed green on the day. That's showing a lot of strength. And this whole sector, BMY, oops, right, all-time highs today.
Wow.
Right, strong, pushing up. We talked about Lilly. Merck today had their investor day. Look at this move on Merck. Stayed green, couldn't hold it. So I think there's a lot of strength in the big bio. We'll also look at Merck here. It's got this huge gap. I pointed this out, right? This huge gap. Do you have a big tail, a little bit of a shooting star candle today? Yes, you do. That said, look how far it is off the 8-day. If it dipped and held the 8-day, I would stick with it. Look at this trend. Look at how many times it's dipped on the 8-day here and held it all the way up. And these are the type of names you want to be looking at right now. I think big pharma is coming into play, has been very strong. I think commodities like steel and copper, Cliffs and X, we can show some of these charts if we want to keep going.
Yeah.
I don't think I would be sleeping on these charts, right? New highs today on Cliff, couldn't hold into the close, but still closed above the previous day's close. So very strong. Long move. Here's your 8-day sitting here. Wait to see how it catch up. Same thing with X. Right, X a little bit weaker today, but still holding the 8-day in this area very, very strong. I'm not a type of guy that says if you close a couple cents below the 8-day, you've lost it, right? You close on it or above it or just right on it, you're close enough at this point. Cliff's been a monster, right? All these commodity plays, new highs on this one today as well. So, I mean, everybody wants to talk tech and tech and tech, and tech for this year has not been the place to be. And, part of that's due to the yield, the treasury rates, right? We have the treasury rates going up. The 10-year yield hit, I think, $2.57 today. CNBC had a blurb out there. 30-year mortgages over 5% for the first time since 2011.
Oh, wow.
So, you have all this pressure on tech and everything, and commodities tend to be hot. So I'd be looking on commodities on any shallow dips here because they tend to be holding it. If you're looking for strong names in tech, I'll go ahead and put one up. But like Crowd was, this is an example of a setup that failed today. So I've been watching Crowd all for the last 2 weeks. Here's your 8-day, it pushed up. And see last week, these 3 tails off the 200-day. And you can see it, the 8-day was pushing it up. The 200-day was holding in. You knew it had to give one way or the other within the next couple sessions. And today it just kind of broke down and said, okay, it couldn't hold. So now you have to watch to see it resets. Does it hold this little flag area in here around the 217 area, or does it come down and dip down to the 21-day now? But, this is still a good looking chart in tech compared to a lot of the other ones.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's keep on moving here. We got another round queued up. It's Bank of America, BAC.
Man, the banks are just sick right now.
Struggling.
You would think with interest rates going up, the banks would have these big moves up, and they cannot hold a bounce at this point. Banks typically love to run into earnings. Earnings start next Wednesday, right? So next Wednesday, banks start earnings. At this point, I don't have a good feel for what they want to do. My test here is we're below all the moving averages. We lost all of them. You have a gap here that's sitting here that goes, for me, I'm a little weird on gaps. Some people disagree with this. For me, a gap is from the close of the previous candle to the to the low of the next one. So for me, this gap would go all the way down to the close, which is down here at the 38.55 level. So this can drop down. Well, that's because that's where it closed, right? So that's where the gap in the action starts.
Right.
Right. It's not here because that was just the day's high. The gap in the action starts here. Right. That's where everybody's trapped, wherever they were. If they were short, this is where they're trapped at, down into this level.
Right.
So for me, Bank of America here is staring at this gap tomorrow. And if it wants to come down, it can come down and fill it. Rates are going up, and Bank of America is very sensitive. You would think Bank of America would be going up here, but it's not right now. And that's a warning sign for me. That's a big warning.
I wonder if the rest of the banks are kind of looking the same way.
They're all looking pretty bad. JP Morgan, to me, best in breed. You got Jamie Dimon there, and this
Right.
name is almost back on the lows here and just looks horrible.
Interesting.
Just looks really bad.
Interesting. All right. Good to know. Steer clear of the banks. Next round, MOS, the Mosaic Company.
Back to commodities, fertilizer this time. You see, you're coaching on all my favorite names right now.
Yeah.
So one thing I'll tell you about this is a play on fertilizer, guys, and with the Russian potash mines, which supplies most of the world's fertilizer, closed now to most of the rest of the world. Mosaic's one of the few games in the industry. So you've had this big move up here, and it reached the high up here of 71. I am a believer that this is going all the way back. Sometimes I probably should change my time frame on the chart instead of trying to scroll back. Anyway, I'm thinking it's going to 80.
Okay.
Going back to a many years ago high. I think it's got its eyes set on 80. So, dips to the 8 and the 21 day are viable. It's still above them right now. There's going to be a lot more discussion about food shortages. If Ukraine's not planting and Russia's not planting, and nobody's talking about it, but yields in the rest of the world are going to be down because if you don't have access to as much fertilizer, yields aren't going to be as high. And that means that there's going to be a world food shortage. And that's, we'll have food here in this country, but I think if you're in a country that doesn't produce its own food, and especially a impoverished country, you're going to have a lot of things to worry about coming up for the next winter. So I like Mosaic a lot. I think this one goes higher.
All right. Awesome. And not awesome, but
yeah,
but awesome. All right. Keep on moving. PayPal.
So I used to love PayPal. You have this horrible double top area up here that we have not been able to reclaim. You gap down on it. You had this push up. You created another higher low, bad earnings again, higher low, bad earnings again, higher low. And the CEO came out last earnings and he said, I give him credit for being honest, but didn't inspire confidence to any of your investors, that basically the rest of this year is a lost year and we're doing everything to try to get on the right ship for 2023. So when I hear something like that, I'm a very technical trader or trade on price action momentum. That doesn't mean I wouldn't trade PayPal, but I don't want to own it now until they have an earnings report that changes that mantra and says something different. And it's been so weak. And even though everybody says this is one of those names, oh, it's so cheap, we should just, why not buy it here? Well, maybe it'll go up, maybe it won't. But see this earnings gap, we haven't even sniffed it yet. Right? We haven't even come up and sniffed it. And to me, we broke above the 50-day for the first time yesterday and gave right back to it today. For this name to work, I think the market has to be going full bore with it. Otherwise, I think this name's just in trouble. So if it can push back above today's high, you might be able to push up before earnings to the 50 gap and see how it handles that. If the market decides that we want to sell off, it could very easily come down and retest the 92 level.
Right. Because on the one hand, you figure that if the worst of the worst is known, then maybe there's some potential. But also if the worst of the worst is known, and that is that things aren't going to improve until 2023, why hold this name until they prove themselves a little bit more, right?
Right. Or you get closer to 2023.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, good to know. Keep it on here. This one's going to be interesting. DKNG. Haven't looked at this in a long time.
Yeah, another name which
for a good reason, it looks like.
2 years ago, they made a fortune on this name, and this name's just been such a tough trader ever since. You can see this move all the way up to the 75, and this chart just got ugly. I actually do not be surprised if this thing comes back down to its listing offer of 10 at some point. I really would not be surprised about that at all. What's going on with this name is, a CEO came out in the first quarter after earnings and said, we won't be profitable for 3 more years. In a interest rate going up market where they have a huge burn of cash, they have a very high acquisition cost per customer, and they're going to need to keep borrowing cash or doing raises. That's just not good. Everybody loves this name. Everybody loves getting into the online gambling. This is the place to be. But honestly, I think this name could be in for a tough spell for a while yet. Every pop right now to the 50-day, we've talked about this on some other names, it's just being sold off. You can see it pushes above it briefly, but It's intraday, it can't hold. Today it closed back below all the moving averages again. To me, that's always a little bit of a warning sign. And, here was your low of 15. And like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if this worked its way back to 10 over the next couple of months.
Wow. And what negates that for you?
You're going to have a good report where they talk about being profitable sooner or start turning some profits and, credible growth, and talk about their cash flow. And I think that could become one of the big burning issues for a lot of these new issue companies, these tech companies, which are reliant upon a lot of capitalization. Talking about their cash flows and becoming important, because if rates are keep going up and they're going to need to keep borrowing, that's going to make it a lot more expensive for them.
Right. Right. All right. Donkey Kong not looking so great for the old Donkey Kong. We're going to keep on moving here. Next round, Costco. This one's been
All-time
strong.
highs.
Yeah, this one's been strong.
All right. So big, beautiful chart. Tomorrow night after the close, we get same store sale numbers for the following month. I cannot remember the last time they disappointed. They've been so strong. And if you think about Costco, they are the perfect name for right now, because everybody's looking for discounts, right? With everything going up and everything more expensive, you're going to go to Costco and you're going to buy in bulk at a cheaper price, and they're still delivering it.
Right.
The good news for them is inflation. They can pass that back on to their customers, so they don't really worry about it so much, other than their fuel costs, which are going up. That's for everybody. And you have this nice chart that hit a new all-time high last week, and today was just off of it, and, riding the 8-day. And this is a beautiful chart. And sometimes, one thing I will say on same store sales, it tends to want to dip. It tends to give a cut. This is back here when we had the last one. And you can see right in here, kind of just dips down a little bit and it chops around on it. And then eventually it wakes up and says, yeah, that number was really good. It's time for me to get going again.
Interesting. Yeah. So I'm catching a theme here. You very much pay attention to the fundamentals as well.
I think, more so in this market than I was like a year or two ago. And I think that's just because the market has changed at this point, and you need to start paying attention to that.
Yeah.
The macro has changed, and that means we have to change to adjust to it.
Right. I mean, that's a really, really great point. I hope everybody heard that and takes that to heart. That's really important. I need to pay more attention to it myself.
For me, I'm up at 5 a.m. every day reading.
There you
going
go.
through everything, and
that's the way. All right. Next round, coming in hot, DNN, Denison Mines.
Another miner. So, I don't know much about this company. I can tell you the chart is okay. It's not leading like some of the other ones are, but it's holding it fine. I think they're a uranium miner too, if I remember correctly. They're a uranium play. So I prefer CCJ in the space. I do trade that. But, similar to CCJ, came down, testing the 21-day here. If it holds, it's okay. Not as strong as CCJ, where CCJ is up at all-time highs. This one can't even get back to the recent highs. But chart's okay. Again, I think uranium likely goes higher.
Right. Awesome. All right. Keep it on. Next round. Ooh, Ollie, OLLI.
Ollie's bargains. I don't think I've ever looked at this chart.
Nor have I.
So, I knew I saw some option flow on this the other day. Now I know why people are talking about it.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what the news was from 2 days ago, but you had this nice gap up and volume and held it, closed here just above the, it was just 100-day, I believe. And yesterday you got a little bit of a doing candle on it, but holding in. If this has strength, it's going to push up. The next big area will be up here at the 53, 54 area. You got a big volume gap in here, and then you have an actual gap in the charts that it can push into. If it does push into that gap, I may be leery of this candle right here. Sometimes that can be a spot where they come in, they sell off around the 56, 796. But I don't know enough about this name to know what they do or anything like that to be of help, other than that the technical chart, if it gets above the recent highs here, I would look to go along it. If it can't take that out, I'd probably just ignore it.
Yeah, interesting. I kind of like that one.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to keep on moving here. We got Enphase, ENPH.
Another guy here pushing on up. Couldn't hold today, came back in a little bit. Look at the trend on the 8-day. Up, up, and up, and up. And this is what you want to look for. Charts like this, you look for, because if what you do is you look today, we got a reversal candle. If it comes down and it does like this and it bounces off the 8-day, that's your buy spot and you're all good. And that's how you play names like this that are moving like this. This is still a good looking chart. It's not up here near the highs, but a nice move. And, you have a bunch of bag holders sitting up here right now who are probably not too happy, but there's not a tremendous volume. So they may not be that bad to try to push back through.
Yeah. So can we talk just for a minute about the significance of the 8-day? You are a big proponent of it. I know Scott Redler is as well.
Yeah, I actually, when I first started trading, I was learning a little bit from Scott and some of his stuff, and it just clicked for me. And I think Scott's a great trader. That's why I always liked it. The 8-day for me is my fast momentum indicator. I find a lot of times I use it on my intraday charts. It works really well on the 5-minute chart as well. And I find if you use a lot of names will use it as support if you're above it when you first touch it, or resistance if you're below it when you come to it. And it basically tells me if I'm above the 8-day, I'm a very strong chart. If I'm below the 8-day, but still above all the other moving averages, I'm still pretty strong. If it's a weak chart and the 8-day is the first moving average I push back up to and I fail, I know if you want to short, that's a place to short at. It's saying it's weak. So, if you look at like here, all these bounces into the 8-day when it was selling off, you can see just how weak it was, right? It couldn't reclaim the 8-day, couldn't reclaim the 8-day in here. And, that's what I look at. Here was your character change in the chart.
Yep.
Hammer candle, retook the 8-day, played with it for 2 days, 3 days, then pushed up, came back. You had this sell off in here, which is probably on the market lows, by the way. And then we got this massive candle on it. And ever since then, it's been trending pretty much back on the 8-day. So for me, it's a very powerful indicator of what the trend looks like short term. If you're above it and you keep bouncing off of it, it's a very strong buy. If you're below it and you keep selling off of it, it's a short or a void.
Right. Got it. All right, cool. Next round, we're coming up into about an hour here. So probably just a few more names before we say sayonara for the evening. But Amazon, AMZN.
Everybody's waiting for Amazon to pop. Everybody's watching Amazon. You have this, I think the earnings are going to be very important for this one coming up. The new CEO has yet to deliver. Last earnings report, we had this big pop up here, but the profits were all on the Rivian stake, which has now dumped like mad. So we'll find out how that affects them. Fundamentally, what I didn't like about Amazon is in here, in the middle of the quarter, instead of announcing a stock split and a buyback on earnings like almost all companies like this do, they felt the fundamental need to come in and do it in the middle of the earnings cycle, the quarter. That usually reeks to me a little bit of a desperation. So that worries me a little bit. One more funding the fundamental matter, I'm a little bit worried about how much fuel prices are going to affect them coming into this quarter, because they just raised rates on Amazon Prime. They can't go out and raise it again. This is the first time they raised it in a couple of years. Right. So they're facing some issues there. From a technical perspective, the chart's kind of chopping around. We had broken finally above the 200-day for the first time in a while, since all the way back here, the first day trading day of the year on January 4th. And then we just promptly give it right back. You had what I call a king-queen candle combination in the last 2 days. That's when you have your king candle on the way up, your queen comes back in and gives it right back down. And that's not what you want to see on a big candle like that. Don't want to see that. You want to hold 50% of it. You would have loved to have held the 200-day here. So to me, this is not a good candle combination. And maybe you want to come down and you want to test the 100-day down in here again, or the 21 days it's coming up. If we can take out these levels and take out this high, it can pop up. You have a stock split coming. That could be a strong catalyst for a name, but you need to deliver. And I think that's the big thing, is Amazon needs to deliver a strong quarter for the CEO.
Yeah, for sure. Interesting. All right, next round. URA, the uranium names are hot this evening.
Wow. So this is our third uranium play?
Yep.
All right. Again, I don't have much different to say about this one than either DNN or CCJ. Similar type candle. You have a hammer reversal candle today on this one, came all the way back down. Here's your hammer on the way up from a couple of days ago. Here's your 21-day moving averages. I would look to hold that. If we could take out this range, room back to the recent highs up here of 31.65 for a $27 stock, it does have a nice bit of range on it in the day, $1 or $2. That's nice to see. Again, I prefer CCJ over these two, but sure.
Yeah, I don't know too much about. I imagine URA is the ETF, so I
Yep.
wonder if maybe if you're playing options, if the spreads are a little bit nicer
Actually,
on.
CCJ is very clean, very
Are,
easy name to trade on options.
oh, okay, cool, good to know.
Typically, the bid ask is 1 cent wide.
Really?
Yep.
Ooh, interesting. All
Yeah.
right, that's good to know. Cool. All right, keeping on here. We got MU Micron.
Man, talk about a name that just loves to freaking screw at everybody and get in
Man, look
everybody's
at that thing.
heads.
What is going on?
So we were up here and I'm like, we're going to break 100. We're going to get to 100. We're going to get, no, nope, we're not going to do it. Nope, we're going to get to 100. Nope, we're going to get there. Nope. And then we had this big sell off. Okay, now we're going to get to 100. No, right back down. You had a report last week. It was a great report. The guidance was great. And then you get gap up and this kind of candle on it. And you're like, oh, we posted AMD. We looked at the SMHs. The semis are just not leading right now. And that's a problem. You can see you have some gap left to fill down here. So, from you guys, you like it down to here. For me, I would actually go a little lower with it, but that's fine. And, maybe it holds that. If not, then you start looking to the recent lows down here and see if it can hold down here at the 68 level. I would love to tell you I like Micron better right now, but, when big mama here, NVIDIA, is not trading particularly well and struggling, the rest of the sector is typically going to struggle. And that was an ugly candle on NVIDIA today, losing the 21-day.
Yeah, brutal. Mike, these are frustrating to see. All right, so we are butting up right here next to an hour. How you feel about doing like a couple more names?
Let's keep going.
All right, we're gonna keep moving here. CVS.
So Chevron, tough trader of late. The one thing I do not like about this name is it definitely doesn't have a lot of range on a daily basis. This is a tough day trading name. It tends to move very, very slow. It's better to swing trade or invest it when it's moving right. It doesn't do a lot of range on it. You have kind of a messy combination up here. You have a little downtrend that's come in. You have some support where it's kind of double bottomed around this 98.50 area. Didn't quite get there, but we'll call it close enough when you miss it by 2 or 3 cents. So if you're trading this right now, this is your key hold. If you cannot hold here, you see your volume drops off here, and you can easily see down back into this 94 area pretty quickly if it can't hold. So I'd watch very carefully here around this 98.50 area, 98.40. If it can hold there and pushes back up, then you got to start taking some of these moving averages back. And that's, you're going to have to watch. Your 200-day is still way down here, so it's still working its way up. So that ultimately might be what catches it at that point.
Yeah, I could definitely see that myself. All right, CVS. Interesting though, CVS not really following the same trend as some of the big healthcare names that you really like.
No, it's not. I mean, it's though the big pharma names are really good. The other one that was strong in the space is United Healthcare. Another nice big strong push up today, and I think that's an all-time high for United today as well. And one of the things these names have in common, the big pharma names, they have big dividends. They're safety names. They tend to be heavily institution owned. They are not, they're not going to be bothered by a recession, right? These are companies that their products are not going to be bought any less. Their drugs are not going to be bought any less. Healthcare is not going away. And that's really the major theme here right now of 2022 so far. It's not tech. It's names that are, in line for a possible recession, or things you can touch, stuff. My friend Chris in my room calls it stuff, whether it's X or Cliffs or Mosaic, right? It's things you can put your hands on. And that's what's driving this market right now. And tech's just having nice days here and there for the most part. The only name in tech that's really just been incredibly strong of late is Big Mama Apple.
Yep.
Right. I would say even though Apple did not have a pretty candle today, the king queen combination, it did hold the 8-day. And it's not far off its all-time high right here, and it looks poised. So if the market reverses tomorrow, there've been a ton of call buying into the 180s, the 182.50s on this. I mean, today somebody was lighting up the May 13th 180 and 185 calls on this thing like there was no tomorrow. And this one looks like it can go at the all-time highs if the market holds up here. So it's not every name, but it's a lot of them.
Yeah.
So there's still some pretty names out there.
Yep. All right, let's keep moving. Next round, CVX, Chevron.
Best in breed, my favorite of all the energy names. This one, their biggest dividend. They didn't cut their dividend when everybody else was cutting their dividends and buybacks during the pandemic. They held strong with it. Warren Buffett's involved in it. He got himself involved in this huge move up. This is an all-time high up here, and you're getting a very nice consolidation pattern in here currently, where it's come in and it's kind of dancing around, but holding the 21-day. And as long as it kind of sits in here, you even have a wedge here. You can kind of see you have this little wedge pattern here that's formed. So when you look at that, you can say, okay, now I can watch it. If I break to the downside, then I could look either short. I don't want to be in it. If it breaks to the upside, and one thing you always look on a break up, what's the volume look like on an intraday chart? Is it big volume or not? And for me, I have a little volume percent thing every day in front of my face, real time, telling me, hey, it's 9:45 and you're already at 15% average daily volume on the day. That means there's big play coming in here. If the SPY is sitting at 5% or 6% and I'm at 15%, I know this name has big volume already and it's a play. So, I would wait for a breakout of that. And if you get that, and then I would take something and, easily move back here to the all-time high of 175.
Are you using RVol for that? For the volume percentage?
No, I have I think it's called Enigma. It was free out there. If you go Google it out there, if somebody hits me up on Twitter, I'm happy to send you a link for it.
Oh, right on. Cool. All right, we're gonna keep moving here. Next round, HD.
My room every week we're talking about this name.
Wow, look at that, man! What a fall from grace.
Beaten, and low has too. And the funny thing is, this is typically a very seasonality right now, strong for Home Depot, right? It's the growing season, it's the building season, but inflation is raging, and maybe they're worried that people aren't going to be doing as much planting or building or decks that they would normally do. And so everybody keeps saying, I want to buy it because it's cheap. Well, the only thing I'll tell you is right now you have a triple bottom here into this 258 area where you also have this volume shelf. And guys, if you're using TrendSpider, you need to watch these volume shelves. They're really, really important. They will tell you, if you lose that, there's nothing to catch it here, right? And that's what's important to know. There's no support here. There's no institutional support at this point. That means if it cannot hold here, it's going to probably drop its way down to at least 284 or lower. So, for now, it's got to clear something. It's been failing at the 8-day, other than this one day it pushed up and then it hit the gap. That was your earnings gap. Its guidance was not good on that day. And I don't know. Jason, I look at this chart and I like Home Depot as a company, but when you have Walmart at all-time highs today and Costco at all-time highs today and low and HD can't get going, they're the big box retailers. I'm concerned, and it can't get above the 8-day.
Yeah, it looks pretty rough, and the speed with which it got back to that relative bottom, it got there very quickly in comparison to how quickly it got there previously. Ooh, that's a dangerous looking name to be in right now. What do you need? I mean, you just need to see those moving averages start to get it reclaimed. Yeah.
For me, if I can get a close over the 8-day, I might get some interest in it. Then see if I can get the 21-day, and then can I start working back? And obviously, this right here, you have a bunch of pivot, candle pivots right in here. It becomes a big spot right around the 330-60 area.
Right.
And then, here's your 50-day coming down. That'll be the next spot to watch.
Yep. All right, we're gonna keep going here. Next round, OSTK. Haven't looked at this in a long time.
Oh, I hate this name. I sat through so much pain in this name for so long.
Yeah.
I'll give them credit. They're doing a great job with their T0 and their blockchain technologies, and they really are leading in that space. The chart's a mess. I mean, it really is. The other thing is it's tended to decoupled itself from Bitcoin. It used to move with Bitcoin. It doesn't tend to do that anymore, which now is kind of like, okay, now what do I play it off? And I don't really love the fundamentals of the company as the online retailer itself. So right now it's weak. It's back onto this area. This is the fourth touch here in the last 2 weeks. And here's your gap sitting here. So I would watch it for that gap fill. I don't know, remember, was it earnings here or what it was that gapped it up? I don't think it was earnings. Maybe it was. Might have been earnings that day that gapped it up. But if it fills that earnings gap, I would definitely watch it down to this 38 area again, and then down here into the 35 area.
Got it. Yep.
You also have a downtrend sitting here. I use too many tools. Got a downtrend sitting there too. You could watch that.
Right. All right, Mike, let's hit one more symbol. Wrap this thing up here.
Whatever you want.
We got VNTR.
I have never heard of this guy.
Oh, what is going on with this name?
This is a little guy. I'm going to pass on this one, Jason.
We can't end on this.
No. This is, guys, I'm going to just want to say a thing. If you're trading a name like this, it's an investment. It's not a trade. You need to know everything about it. I call these little names low float pigs because they really have no float out there and they're easy to manipulate. And when they go against you, look out, like what happened up here. So I don't know anything about this name, and you would need to know what's going on in this name if you wanted to.
To be fair, trading a name like this, I believe, is a rite of passage. If you have not traded something like this, if you have not gotten stuck in a name like this, then you haven't been trading long enough. I have.
Multiple times. I rode OSTK from 75 all the way down into the low teens before I added aggressively to it and got out for a profit.
Oh, man.
Similar type name in that. But yes, I mean, you got to understand if you want to trade this or you want to own it, you need to understand fundamentally what the company is and what they do. And I can't help you with this. I've never heard of it.
Right. All right. Let's end on a proper symbol here. We got the Qs. Can't go wrong with going over the Qs.
How about we do square then the Qs?
All right, square then the Qs.
All right, so let's give you a name I like here because we've been talking about these names. This is still a very strong chart in this market right now, and it may not look it, but here's your earnings report. You have this big gap and go. We pushed up into the 50-day, came down, nice little W formation, right? You guys all know a W formation. Come down. Here's your midpoint. Come down. Your long is either off the bottom, bubble bottom, or when it takes out the midpoint. And look at square. Beautiful 1, 2, 3, 4-day rally up here. Big, strong move. Nice little wedge pattern in here is giving trades along the way. I traded this one yesterday for a nice win. And here's your 100-day coming down into this. And it's going to either provide a catalyst one way or the other at this point. So watch this upper flag. Your 21 days coming up into here. If this holds, it can go. If you're looking at PayPal and Square, I would say take Square over PayPal right now until PayPal proves itself.
Yep.
All right. The Qs. I mean, the Qs have been weak all year, right? The Qs just have not been the place to be. No matter how much you want to look at it here, the Qs have just been horrible. I have this drawn on my TOS chart. You have this downtrend that's sitting in here that we have never even come close to or sniffed since forever. And, finally, we're flirting with the 200-day up here. And we broke above it for one day. We held above it and we lost it. Yesterday, we retested it and we failed there. And I actually called that out yesterday in the room, said, careful, this is a big spot. And whereas the SPY traded above today's candle, notice the Qs, we gapped down. We were weak. Pre-market, we were weak. And that's the one thing you always look at pre-market. When I look at the pre-market, I look as how's the ES trading versus the NQ trading versus the Russell trading versus, different things. And the NQ and specifically ES, we were showing weakness on the tech, on the futures. And you have this nasty candle that went down very weak here. And the big problem with tech is it doesn't like high interest rates. And right now our interest rates are going up. So you want to focus on profitable companies here. And, names that are losing money hand over fist, i.e. DraftKings, as much as I love a firm, they're hemorrhaging money left, right, and center. You got to be more careful with those names in an environment like this. And, you're going to want to try to hold right in here. If you can't kind of hold this 358.60 area, give or take, you see all the candles that kind of come up into this area, and even 360, we'll call it 360 where we closed today. I like to look at candles. How many touches do we have here? And, what you look at is, all the way back. Okay, we have, open closes here, tails, wicks. So 360 is a big spot. If you can't hold 360, you watch your 21-day. What I will say is a positive, your 50-day is finally starting to curl back up, which is a good sign. By the way, everybody always talks about, we have a death cross. I always find the death cross or the golden cross when the 50-day crosses the 100-day to be just such a late, lazy indicator. So we got the cross here. Well, we got the cross here. We weren't far off the lows already. And then we went down a little bit more and then we came rushing back up. And I find these to be late indicators, and you hear a lot of hype about it, especially on CNBC and some of these networks, but I don't follow them. I never found them to be working. I've been trading since 2008. I've never found them to be a great indicator in the markets.
Right on, Mike. Well, this has been an absolute pleasure, man. We really appreciate you taking your time, your valuable time to spend with us this evening. This has been awesome. Tell all the viewers where they can find you.
Jason, thanks for having me on. Always a pleasure to hook up with you guys at TrendSpider. Um, Best way to find me is you can come on Twitter, go to Options Mike. If you don't see 75,000 followers, it's probably some copycat out there like we all have it these days trying to look like me. But
Yep.
you'll find me out there, or you can come to my website, and that's smartoptiontrading.com.
Awesome. Well, if anybody is interested in getting to know Mike better, please shoot him a follow on social media. As well, we did a Talking with Traders interview. Our founder, Dan, did a Talking with Traders interview with Mike some time ago. That's available as a podcast, so please feel free to listen to that. And coming up next this week, we've got a discussion on Twitter Spaces. Thursday evening, we're going to be talking about the best options strategies with some great traders. So please take the time and tune in. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We do really appreciate it. We apologize about the live voting. We're going to get that worked out and make sure that it's up and running properly for you next time. So have a great evening. Happy trading, profitable trading. As the guys at All Star Charts like to say, FOMO responsibly. With that, we'll say goodnight. Hope you guys all have a great evening, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys. Good night.